actually would be a good opportunity, I think. So
Okay.
I encourage us not to miss that. Now, last time DWP was in this committee, we also talked about possible less expensive, more efficient mitigations for the Owens Lake problem. Have we continued to make any progress in that regard?
You know, currently the three mitigation technologies that are available to us are the shallow flooding, the managed vegetation, and the gravel. Gravel has the high upfront cost, but once you do it, it's pretty much done. You don't have any maintenance costs, unlike the water that has to be replenished every year. You know, we're putting right now about $50 million worth of water on the lake every year. What we're working through a collaborative process with a lot of the stakeholders up there is through a master plan process. We're trying to identify the areas of the lake that have high habitat potential, and then with an eye towards focusing the water use on those areas and creating would still be a pretty substantial amount of high quality habitat, and then letting us use other waterless dust control methods over the rest of the non-habitat potential areas in the lake. There would be some upfront costs to that, so I'm kind of hesitant to say it's going to be less costly because there will be upfront costs, but over time it ought to save us money because it'll save that annual water purchase. So we are pursuing that, and we do need some relief, though, from our regulator up there. Right now they've been very inflexible in working with us to certify additional methods of dust control. For instance, one of the things we've been looking at is this a methodology called tillage, which is basically getting like big industrial-sized plows that would turn the soil. And this has proven to be pretty effective in dust control. Now it'll have to be redone periodically, but overall it'll still be less costly. For us to invest in that, will require substantial millions of dollars up front. Well, we want to have some certainty. If we invest in that we've now met our obligation and that we don't have a kind of this cloud hanging over our head. We recently got something from the Great Basin Board kind of conditionally approving this, but then they put a kind of an asterisk at the end and said, but if we change our mind down the road, all bets are off. Well, that doesn't give us the kind of certainty we need, you know, if we're spending ratepayer money. So we're still working at it, but it's very difficult up there.
And in terms of expanding the boundaries, do we have any end in sight in terms of getting a finite boundary of where our responsibility lies?
Currently, we're at that 45 square mile boundary. That includes phases 8 and 7A that I mentioned earlier that we have the budget. They've asked us to do phase 9, phase 10, and even when we ask, is that going to be the end of it, they've said, no, there could be new areas that pop up. We feel that at this point, we've more than mitigated the dust impacts that are associated with our water gathering activities at Owens Lake, which was what our legal obligation was. We've never been told that we have to remove all the dust off Owens Lake. It's a naturally dusty area. There was dust on Owens Lake before LADWP or even modern settlers ever came into that valley, and there has to be some kind of recognition of that desert environment for us to get a closure on this thing.
How do we ever nail that down? Or
well, we're trying to. We've been, Ron Nichols and myself have been meeting with some high-level folks in Sacramento. We're trying to get Cal EPA, State Lands Commission, California Air Resources Board to a certain extent, trying to get some of the higher-level decision makers involved to realize that this water use on the lake is a statewide issue because that has to be made up of water exporting through the delta, but also there's just a fairness issue to our ratepayers, and we need to have some kind of closure on this. We feel like we've got a very substantial commitment. We're going to be up there. We'll be maintaining that 45 square miles forever, and we feel that in exchange for that, we should have some certainty going forward. So we're trying to work with some people that have the ability to make those kind of decisions to get there.
Good. And one last question, if I might. Just to follow up on the local water quality and supply questions, how do our local resources and that plan compare with fiscally with other options?
We've done some financial analysis, kind of benchmarking the cost of these local supply options against MET rates, which are estimated to continue to go up. Water conservation is probably the most cost-effective of all of them. Recycle water. Once you get a few years out, you can see the lines cross and the payoff period is there, but there is an upfront cost. But in the water business, I mean, most of the big projects like the aqueducts and some of these big things, you're investing for the long run, and we think that the local resource projects ought to be looked at the same way as you'd look at a big reservoir or a big canal. So we feel like we've built a good, strong financial case for investing in those things going forward.
So your analysis shows that they're all cost effective.
Oh,
over
in time, it's not like a .com 3-year payback period, but we do feel for a civil type project they're good investments.
Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Koretz. I'll go to public comment, but before we go to public comment, if we could get the concurrence of Mr. Zine and Mr. Carnitz on item 3 and 5. Those were on consent.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And we will continue the other 2 items on today's agenda for anybody else waiting for those. On item number 2, I do want to say that staff from DWP should contact my office, Mr. Martin Schlatiger. Whole staff.
That guy.
Yeah. And talk to him about this contract. Again, this is an after-the-fact contract. The performance has been completed, or there's an ask for an extension, approving the next part of the contract, but we should have approved this a while back. Again, in order to come to before this committee, we cannot be approving after-the-fact performance, and we saw that with the previous truck contract, and we are no longer going to accept these. So that's something that I hope is very clear with the DWP staff. But in the interim, as we continue this item, if you could please speak to my staff. We have a number of questions on that. Item number 4, Mr. Zine motion relative to the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power uncollected lease payments. We will continue that as well with the concurrence of Mr. Zine. Okay. So we just have public comment on this item, and that I think will conclude our meeting. Thank you. So on this item, Daniela Arellano. Go ahead.
Hello, committee members. Thank you for having us here, and thank you for being here. My name is Daniela Arellano, and I was raised in Sylmar in the San Fernando Valley and went to UC Santa Barbara, graduated from USC with my master's, and I'm now a fellow at Generation Water, which is a water use reduction nonprofit social enterprise that focuses on generating green jobs. We believe that investment in local water supply has great potential to really generate new jobs. Over the last few years, Generation Water has employed over 85 youth and trained over 200 young people in water use efficiency and sustainable landscaping. A couple facts that might be of interest to you. Every year, the DWP buys around 300,000 acre-feet of water from the Metropolitan Water District. And while the amount varies from year to year, we export hundreds of millions of dollars outside of our region. So imagine the impact that investing some of that money in local water projects could have on job creation and local economic development. Redirecting $100 million from purchased water to local supplies would create between 1,300 and 1,600 jobs. As a noted fact about Generation Water, we are members of Green LA Coalition, and we are active members of the Water Committee. So we hope that you will embrace Green LA goals to make both economic and environmental sense and provide the LA DWP with the resources that are necessary to develop our local water supplies. Thank you.
Thank you. Raymond Yu.
Good afternoon. My name is Raymond Yu, and I am a technology specialist at Generation Water. And I am here to talk about our LA Rain Gardens program, which focuses on increasing local water supply by collecting, harvesting rainwater from residential landscapes in the San Fernando Valley area. A rain garden consists of a shallow infiltration basin that collects runoff from roofs and other hardscapes. We remove turf. We redirect gutters and downspouts. We plant California-friendly vegetation and mulch the area. The result is a beautiful rain garden that increases the local water supply and decreases runoff and requires less water. Tree People and LADWP came up with this concept. They brought us in to implement the program and install the rain gardens. To date, we have installed over 130 rain gardens, and based on our customer survey data, our customers are very happy with their rain gardens. The LADWP needs more resources to expand this program and others like it. And if anyone here is interested in the rain gardens, I have flyers, and if you live in the San Fernando Valley area, we'd be happy to install one for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Domingo. Good afternoon.
Hi, my name is Brian Domingo. I am from Eagle Rock. I graduated from Eagle Rock High School. I'm currently majoring in computer science at Cal State LA. I've been with Generation Water for about 3 years now. I wanted to discuss a project we did in LA with LAUSD, where we conducted 133 irrigation surveys on their school sites. At the irrigation surveys, we identified over 586 broken pipes, 2,154 broken sprinklers, on average about 21 broken devices per campus. Each of these broken devices has been geotagged and stored in a database. All of this data has been given to LAUSD, but I believe I can confidently say that with all the education funding cutbacks over the last several years, that there has nothing been done about these 2,700 leaks. Each of these devices is wasting roughly 400 gallons of water every minute the irrigation system is running. Multiply that by 10 minutes a day, 3 times a week, you have about over 16 million gallons of water that could be saved yearly. The DWP needs resources to improve water use efficiency, which lowers our demand for imported water. Our work at LAUSD and in schools and parks throughout the region illustrates that there is a tremendous opportunity for conservation and efficiency improvements. That it is more cost-effective to use water efficiently than it is to build new aqueducts hundreds of miles from here to import water into our region. And if you support DWP in its efforts to invest in local water supplies, you can help grow local job opportunities such as mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Vandelbaum.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I'm staff attorney at Environment Now, which has been here in Los Angeles since 1989. And we've been working in coalition with Green LA to learn more about imported water and local water production. So we've asked many of the same astute questions that you've asked today. And we have more findings to share with you, and we'd like to explore these further with you and with DWP staff, who have been very forthcoming with information. The findings I'd like to share with you today are about the vulnerability of the imports that we have relied upon for many years now, and the benefits of the local water, which you've heard about just from the past 3 speakers. So the vulnerability comes from the slides you've seen. I'll try not to reiterate much, but the reduction in snowpack from the eastern Sierras, also the competing interests that are coming from imported waters. You know that Metropolitan has their allocation reduced from the Colorado River. That's been going on over the past 8 years. We're also very concerned about the heavy commitments that Metropolitan has made to more infrastructure in the Delta region. We've seen the news as well as you have that 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 payment could be up to $40 billion. We'd like you to consider the bond repayment on $20 billion and the cost that would come back to users here. And we're concerned that both Metropolitan and DWP are considering Metropolitan's rate at a 5% increase, when over the past 35 years it has grown at a 6.4% increase on average. So if you can explore that more. As you've seen, the local supplies are much more reliable. They create jobs here. Energy demand is reduced because they don't have to convey water, and they're cost effective. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Garry Ruiz. After Garry Ruiz is Melanie Winter.
Hi, my name is Garry Ruiz. I'm also from the Green LA Coalition Water Committee, and I live in Lincoln Heights in Council District 1. Just want to let you all know we understand the challenge of meeting the DWP and city's revenue needs in these difficult economic times. And we know that part of our role, part of everyone's role, but a role we need to participate in is educating the public and educating other policymakers so that everyone understands how important it is to invest in local water and how much money that saves in the long run. We know that water rates are increasing nationwide, and LA is no exception to this trend. Given that reality, we believe the DWP must soften the blow to low-income households and fixed-income seniors as water rates go up. Local water, investment in local water will save ratepayers hundreds of millions of dollars in the future because of the increasing costs of imported water that we just heard about. And local water creates local jobs here in Los Angeles right now that's going to help the local economy. It also ensures a reliable and secure supply of water regardless of the risk of natural disasters. Imported water carries with it a lot more risks of catastrophic disruption from earthquakes and other disasters. So again, we just want to urge you, invest in local water. It's good for the people of Los Angeles. It's good for the environment. It's good for our future. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Melanie Winter. After Melanie is Kirsten James.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. Thank you for letting us speak today on this issue. I'm Melanie Winter. I'm the director of the River Project. I'm also part of the Green LA Coalition. DWP's proposal discusses diversifying our water supply to reduce our reliance on imported supplies, which is a great thing. What we believe that the city can and must move faster and more aggressively to invest in our local water supply. If the city takes these aggressive steps and pays more attention to the San Fernando groundwater basin so that we can access the water that we're moving to stormwater, we're moving to groundwater, we believe that instead of moving to 37% local water by 2035, as the department just laid out for you, that we can get to more than 50% in less than half the time. The River Project and Tree People and others have been doing studies in partnership with city, state, county, and federal government agencies over the last 10 years that look at watershed by watershed projects that can be done, many of which are moving forward. These lists of projects comprise and tell us that we can get much more than 40,000 acre-feet of groundwater by 2020 if we move aggressively. The department's goal is 25,000 acre-feet by 2035. These projects create local jobs. They're much more reliable. Their stormwater profile is much too small. We need to invest more aggressively and more quickly. In addition, one other question that builds off of Councilman Corrett's plain language plea. We've been working with the department who have been sharing information with us for more than a year on this. And yet, although water is our life, all of myself and my colleagues on the Water Committee, we still have difficulty in understanding how the department defines, differentiates, calculates, and budgets for the various local water program categories. Clearer, more accessible, and transparent explanations of these will be necessary if the general public is going to understand where their rate increases are going. Thank you.
Thank you. Kirsten James. After Kirsten is Stephanie Taylor, and our final speaker is Connor Everetts.
Good afternoon. My name is Kirsten James, and I'm with Heal the Bay. And as a member of Green LA, I support the comments of my colleagues that spoke before me. I think it's important to keep in mind that, as we saw today, this rate proposal is, looking at a period of 2 years. However, our pressures on our local water supply are going to be way far beyond that time horizon. So we really need to look 5 years, look 10 years, look 15 years, and figure out how we're going to have a sustainable water source here in Los Angeles. And I think this effort can be used to jumpstart that discussion and can have council give DWP the strong signal that we need a long-term strategy for water here in Los Angeles and that we are facing these challenges. We've already talked about the proposal to bring additional water from up in Northern California and the extreme cost, $20 billion, that will be on the ratepayers. And the very fact that this proposal is being proposed brings to light the fact that our water sources are at stake here, and we need to focus on local water. Mr. McDaniels laid out that local water supply is a financially viable option. So why aren't we looking at more of local water supply? Why is that pie chart, why aren't those numbers for local water supply in 2030, 25 twice that amount? We need DWP to answer that question. If it does make sense economically, why aren't we doing that? We have lots of plans. We have the IRP, we have the water master plan, we have the water recycling plan, but a plan's only a piece of paper unless it's implemented. So we really need DWP to look further out, look in the long term, and to counsel to champion them to make those investments now that'll save us in the future and bring LA to a sustainable water supply. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Taylor. After Stephanie Taylor is Connor Everetts.
Good afternoon. So I'm Stephanie Taylor. I'm also sort of representing the Water Committee, many of that you've already heard from. And members that aren't here that also share our views are the Hollywood Beautification Team and Tree People. And so I just want to sort of underscore some of the very specific concerns. And I'm really glad to see that the committee also shares some of the concerns that we have in terms of asking for some very specific goals and asking for midterm benchmarks and detailed reports. So especially since, as you've noted, something like the Urban Water Management Plan, which is so far out into the future, we've noticed consistently that the city falls short of those goals. So we want to be sure that the city really can articulate, not just on a year-to-date budgeting basis, but on a midterm 5-year basis, that they are in fact meeting these very important goals. So the Water Committee is our position that we support a water rate increase proposal that is conditioned upon the city and the DWP's commitment to reducing LA's dependence on imported water, which must be demonstrated by the following. And as we mentioned, a very specific implementation plan that also identifies and dedicates an adequate level of funding to meet these goals. And we also note that these things should include timelines and benchmarks and required progress reports and so forth. We also want to ensure that the city increases its revenues and its budget for these local programs. And as we noted, and as the DWP did note, that there are some upfront investments that are needed for local water, and we all have to sort of acknowledge that and plan for that. And that in the instance that revenues that are received for local water, for any reason, if they're not spent on these projects, that any budgeted funds must be reallocated to other local water projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Connor Everetts.
Thank you very much. I love being last. My name is Connor Everetts, the Southern California Watershed Alliance, and I am in concurrence with the comments made by my colleagues. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Having done conservation programs for many years, I want to actually compliment LADWP for what they've done in the past and what they might do in the future. I just want to point, there's a couple inconsistencies and then a couple quick personal comments. One is that we've maintained a flat, now lower level of demand since 1978 with more people. I don't know why we don't expect to continue to do that if we do a good job and reach any of our goals. The other is our per capita 123 is low, but not as low as it can be. Israel, Spain, and Australia with the same lifestyle, basically, much warmer temperatures, is at 30 to 50 gallons per day per person. So we have a long ways to go. Long Beach is getting down towards 100. They're a good example of a local city that's doing a more aggressive program at this point. So I certainly give them compliments for the past. I wanted to say, in terms of your constituents and programs that we're going to offer, I appreciate the comments of the future cost of faraway infrastructure. Obviously, we need to invest in local. And I keep bringing up this example of my mother in the San Fernando Valley with this, who made the right attempt. I kind of pushed her to do this, to put an outside landscape meter in. Unfortunately, we were penalized rather than seeing the benefit for that. So that bill got up to $8,000. And I kept on hearing I would get help on that until I mentioned it in front of City Council. Nothing really happened. They have now dropped that in half, but now the bill's going back up. And ironically, we've moved out of the House because of a huge electric spike we happened to get after DWP restored power. So on a personal level, I'm having a much harder time with this. On an institutional level, I know we can do more. I've done it myself. We saved 27% in Pasadena. They're on the right track. We just need to push them to invest in local water. I want to thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was our last speaker. And colleagues, I was going to note and file this item, but what I'll do is I'll continue it. We have some information that we need to get from DWP with respect to having some shorter-term projections and goals set out as they have here. And once we get that information, it seems like there's an additional conversation that needs to happen about how we start pressing DWP to move in a direction that is more conducive to some of the issues brought up today as this committee would like to see them. So I'll keep this item open. We have some reports that we will get from DWP. I asked for a 10-year plan, but maybe we do 5, 10, 15. They provided 20, 25, so let's do 5, 10, 15, and get details on those so that then we could start continuing the dialogue on the direction that we are moving in with respect to our water use. So keep this item open to be continued. Okay? Thank you. That ends this meeting. We do have one general public comment. Isaac said, are you still here? Okay. This is for general public comment, items not on the agenda. You wish to speak?
It's not regarding water, it's on power.
Okay. You have a right to 2 minutes to state your case.
Okay. I've got, why are LA residents, sorry. Why are LA residents paying 60% more for electricity as compared to the average prices in the nation? And number two is that in 2008, average price of natural gas, a major fuel item for electricity generation, was $8.33 per 1,000 cubic feet. Now it's $2.60. Why electricity prices higher than 2008 now? And number three is Iowa residents have benefited from the steep drop in natural gas prices by reduction of 5, 8, and 11% for the years 10, 11, and 12 respectively. Why LA is not replicating that? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. If you need if you want to discuss that, we have a gentleman here from the Chief Legislative Analyst Office. He'll be happy to discuss that with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
We do need to, I doubt if our rates are 60% higher than the rest of the nation, but he will let you know how we view that. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our meeting. Thank you very much.